Hello and welcome to Ogmore-by-Sea Church's Reading the Bible Together. My name is Dom, I'm the pastor of the church, and it's great that you can join me as we pick up the book of Job. Job is what we're reading through the month of August 2023, and I've got a few words by way of introduction, but we ought to pray before we do any of that, so please would you pray with me. Our loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you that you have spoken and you continue to speak today. Father, give us ears to hear, give us hearts to believe. And Father, as we read your word today, we pray that by your Spirit, that you would forge in us perseverance, patience, and hope. Father, help us. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So Job, it's thought that Job is the most ancient book of the Bible. It's not known who wrote it. It could have been Job himself, referring to himself in the third person, and that's not a strange thing to do back then. But it could have also been Elihu, or it could have been one of the other friends. It could have been an unnamed bystander. It could have been Moses when he was in the Midian wilderness looking after Jethro's sheep. And that one intrigues me when I heard it suggested, and you think about maybe parallels between Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, and Job and the worship system. Anyway, that's by the by. We don't know who wrote it, but the setting of it is at the time of the patriarchs, and you can glean hints and clues from various parts to see that. So, for instance, Job's wealth is counted in livestock, just like Abraham's wealth was. Job's length of life is comparable to the patriarchs. I think it's Terah, Abraham's ancestor. What other details are there? The worship. So Job offers sacrifices and yet isn't an Israelite, and certainly not Levitical, and yet his offering is accepted. So all these are clues saying that this is pre-Mosaic and at the time of the patriarchs. And it famously deals with the issue of God and suffering. The fancy name for this in theological discussions is theodicy. It's that age-old question of, if there is a good God, then why is there suffering? Why? And why do bad things happen to good people? It kind of touches on this, and it kind of doesn't as well, and you'll see what I mean. But something that I've read, which we've got printouts in church, it had a great line which kind of sums up the message of Job and this issue of suffering. It says, instead of asking where God is in the midst of your pain, the book of Job affirms God's control and asks, where are we in our pain? Are we trusting our Creator even though we cannot understand our circumstances? And having read the book of Job before, that just seems like they get it. The person who writes this gets it. Job, as this deals with suffering, it's not so much where is God, it just says God is there. God does know, and he knows more than we do. So it's not this paradox that maybe we assume it is. God is there, but where are we in our suffering? I think that's such a helpful question. And lastly, by way of introduction, is Job, the person, is mentioned elsewhere in the Bible, which not only signifies that he is a real historical person. This isn't just an extended parable. This is history. But it also sheds light on what we're to expect reading through Job and how we're to judge Job, because this is God's judgment of Job. And we don't want to have a different idea of Job than God does, do we? So I've got pulled up Ezekiel chapter 14, and I'll read from verse 12. So Ezekiel set at the time of the exile, So many, many years later. Verse 12, the word of the Lord came to me, that's Ezekiel, Son of man, if a country sins against me by being unfaithful, and I stretch out my hand against it to cut off its food supply and send famine upon it and kill its people and their animals, even if these three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, were in it, they could save only themselves by their righteousness, declares the sovereign Lord. And this little passage goes on to talk about the Lord's plagues and curses and judgments on, and saying it's even if these three men were in it, they could not save their own sons or daughters even. They could only save themselves. And this is an echo of what was going on with the discussion the Lord had with Abraham as looking down on Sodom, and there was righteous Lot there. And yes, we stand before the living God and have an account for our own lives, and we cannot pay for the sins of others. That is a biblical truth. It's only Jesus in his divinity can save the world in his righteousness. But I don't want to get sidetracked too much. The point here is that the Lord brings up Job as one of the three gleaming examples of righteousness. So as we're to look at Job, there's going to be a lot of fingers pointed at him saying, you are unrighteous, you are dirty, you deserve suffering for some reason. But the Lord God here says that Job is exceptionally righteous alongside Noah and Daniel. And the other thing that I find interesting, being put alongside Noah and Daniel, is that these three stood faithfully despite everyone around them disobeying. So Noah lived at a time where everything was just rotten, but Noah trusted the Lord. So he stood out in that way. And we've just been reading Daniel, and he was away from his true home. He had risen up the ranks in the Babylonian Empire and then later the Persian Empire, but he was faithful to his God, despite being out of sync and out of place with the surrounding culture. So a righteousness in exceptional circumstances. And as we read through Job, we'll also see that he stands out. He's a diamond in the rough, as it were. And then the other place where Job is mentioned is James in the New Testament. And I could read loads more, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to read from verse 10. So the Apostle James writes, brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. So as we look at Job, we ought to expect to see an example of perseverance, of patience, and also this dynamic of the Lord rewarding at the end. So patiently waiting and it paying off in the end. And we ought to see that the Lord is full of compassion and mercy. Might come across in a strange way as you get to where the Lord comes in the whirlwind in the book of Job, but it's really helpful to have these things told us at the outset. Right, so we're going to dive into Job. I think the first the first two chapters are of a kind. It's seeing behind the scenes. So we get an insight that Job and his so-called friends can't see. This is Job, chapter 1, verse 1. In the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys, and had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. So he's rich and he's righteous. Righteous not just in the sense of being blameless, he trusted in the living God. And we'll see later on that he asks for forgiveness. He knows that he's not perfect, but he trusts in the living God. Verse 4, his sons used to hold feasts in their homes on their birthdays, and they would invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When a period of feasting had run its course, Job would make arrangements for them to be purified. Early in the morning he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. This was Job's regular custom. One day, the angels, and I am going to click on that footnote because I'm pretty sure it says the sons of God. That's the Hebrew. One day the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan, and I'm going to click that link because it says means adversary, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, where have you come from? Satan answered the Lord, from roaming throughout the earth, going to and fro on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. Does Job fear God for nothing? Satan replied. Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. The Lord said to Satan, very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. One day, when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at their eldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were ploughing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who's escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I'm the only one who has escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the eldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead. And I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground in worship and said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. Can you imagine? It's hard. On another day, the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them to present himself before him. And the Lord said to Satan, where have you come from? Satan answered the Lord, from roaming throughout the earth, going to and fro on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. And he still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason. Skin for skin, Satan replied. A man will give all he has for his own life. But now stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face. The Lord said to Satan, Very well then, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery and scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die. He replied, You are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Foolish apparently denotes moral deficiency. It's not just being ignorant, it is being wickedly stupid. In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. When Job's three friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, heard about all the troubles that had come upon him, they sat down from... Excuse me. Whew. Thank you to everyone who said bless you. Where did we get to? They set out from their homes and met together by agreement to go and sympathize with him and comfort him. When they saw him from a distance, they could hardly recognize him. They began to weep aloud, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. So a couple of things that I'd say. They're more questions rather than answers. Question is, why do you think the Lord is doing what he's doing? Satan comes into his courts. There's a question there. But then it's the Lord who highlights Job. He puts Job on the agenda. And then he allows this awful suffering, losing absolutely everything, heartbroken, so alone, destitute. He's like, I've gone back to zilch, like what I started with in life when I was naked and born. Now I've got nothing, and now he's got less than nothing because he's wretched. He's in pain. So there's a question there. Why does God allow Satan to do this? And then his three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, they arrive. And it's good, isn't it? It's good that they come to see their friend, to be with him. And they're going to spout a load of nonsense for the majority of this book. They're not going to be a comfort to him, but there's something profound about just sitting with someone in their suffering, weeping with those who weep. Sometimes, this is going to sound so cheesy, but sometimes the best thing to say is nothing at all, and just to be there, just to listen. So for 7 days, I think they got things pretty right. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm sniffling so much. Let's keep reading. Chapter 3. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. He said, May the day of my birth perish, and the night that said, a boy is conceived. That day may it turn to darkness. May God above not care about it, may no light shine on it. May gloom and utter darkness claim it once more. May a cloud settle over it. May blackness overwhelm it. That night, may thick darkness seize it. May it not be included among the days of the year, nor be entered into any of the months. May that night be barren. May no shout of joy be heard in it. May those who curse days curse that day, those who are ready to rouse the Leviathan. May its morning star become dark. May it wait for daylight in vain, and not see the first rays of dawn, for it did not shut the doors of the womb on me to hide trouble from my eyes. Why did I not perish at birth, and die as I came from the womb? Why were there knees to receive me, and breasts that I might be nursed? For now I would be lying down in peace. I would be asleep and at rest with kings and rulers of the earth, who built for themselves places now lying in ruins, with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or why was I not hidden away in the ground like a stillborn child, like an infant who never saw the light of day? There the wicked ceased from their turmoil, and there the weary are at rest. Captives also enjoy their ease. They no longer hear the slave drivers shout. The small and the great are there, and the slaves are freed from their owners. Why is light given to those in misery, and life to the bitter of soul? To those who long for death that does not come, who search for it more than for hidden treasure, who are filled with gladness and rejoice when they reach the grave. Why is life given to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in? For sighing has become my daily food, my groans pour out like water. What I feared has come upon me, what I dreaded has happened to me. I have no peace, no quietness, I have no rest, but only turmoil. You got a feel for him, don't you? Then Eliphaz the Temanite replied, "If someone ventures a word with you, will you be impatient? But who can keep from speaking? Think how you have instructed many, how you have strengthened feeble hands. Your words have supported those who stumbled. You have strengthened faltering knees. But now trouble comes to you, and you are discouraged. It strikes you, and you are dismayed. Should not your piety be your confidence, and your blameless ways your hope?" And there, verse 6 is probably a good summary of all the Friends' theology and their false comfort. They think that life is, it's like karma. If you do good, you should expect good. If you do bad, you should expect bad. And it's got a certain logic to it, but it's not the way that this world works. It really isn't. And the example that I often bring up is there's a man called Kim Jong-un, who is the dictator, the ruler of North Korea. And I bet he lives in lavish luxury. But he's a wicked man. And then there are people in the country that Kim Jong-un rules who love Jesus, who are righteous, who are selfless, who are courageous, and yet they suffer to a degree that you could not imagine. So it's all well and good saying karma, or the law of attraction, or whatever. It's just not true to life. And if you do buy into all that, you become very judgmental, just like Job's so-called friends were. You think of people, say like in Nigeria, where there are houses being burned and flocks being stolen and children being kidnapped and machete attacks and awful violence happening. What are you going to say to the victims? Are you going to tell them, looking at them in the eye, and say, I don't know how, but you deserve this. This is what you have earned in life, because that's what karma is. It's just not true. Anyway, we'll have plenty more chapters for me to rant about this, I'm sure. But that's verse 6 of chapter 4, which is a good summary of their philosophy. Should not your piety be your confidence, and your blameless ways your hope? Consider now, who, being innocent, has ever perished? Where were the upright ever destroyed? I can think of a few. As I have observed, those who plough evil and those who sow trouble reap it. At the breath of God they perish, at the blast of his anger they are no more. The lions may roar and growl, yet the teeth of the great lions are broken. The lion perishes for lack of prey, and the cubs of the lioness are scattered. A word was secretly brought to me. My ears caught a whisper of it. Amid disquieting dreams in the night, when deep sleep falls on people, fear and trembling seized me and made all my bones shake. A spirit glided past my face, and the hair on my body stood on end. It stopped, but I could not tell what it was. A form stood before my eyes, and I heard a hushed voice. Can a mortal be more righteous than God? Can even a strong man be more pure than his Maker? If God places no trust in his servants, if he charges his angels with error, how much more those who live in houses of clay, whose foundations are in the dust, who are crushed more readily than a moth? Between dawn and dusk they are broken to pieces, unnoticed they perish forever. Are not the cords of their tent pulled up, so that they die without wisdom? So, this is Eliphaz, isn't it? The Temanite. He starts with this, a bit of flattery, saying how Job is, he's taught others and he's been a comfort to others. And then he says, verse 6, should not your piety be your confidence? And then he says, look, people get what they deserve in the end. God judges the wicked. And then he appeals to this authority, or so it seems, so he deems it, this pretty unnerving spiritual experience, I guess you could describe it as, where he has this ghostly encounter. The thing is, not all spiritual experiences are true. There are liars who are people, and there are liars who are not. Chapter 5. Call if you will, but who will answer? To which of the holy ones will you turn? Resentment kills a fool, and envy slays the simple. I myself have seen a fool taking root, but suddenly his house was cursed. His children are far from safety, crushed in court without a defender. The hungry consume his harvest, taking it even from among thorns, and the thirsty pant after his wealth. For hardship does not spring from the soil, nor does trouble sprout from the ground. Yet man is born to trouble, as surely as sparks fly upwards. But if I were you, I would appeal to God. I would lay my cause before him. He performs wonders that cannot be fathomed, miracles that cannot be counted. He provides rain for the earth. He sends water on the countryside. The lowly he sets on high, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. He thwarts the plans of the crafty, so that their hands achieve no success. He catches the wise in their craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are swept away. Darkness comes upon them in the daytime. At noon they grope as in the night. He saves the needy from the sword in their mouth. He saves them from the clutches of the powerful. So the poor have hope, and injustice shuts its mouth. Blessed is the one whom God corrects. So do not despise the discipline of the Almighty. For he wounds, but he also binds up. He injures, but his hands also heal. From 6 calamities he will rescue you. In 7 no harm will touch you. In famine he will deliver you from death, and in battle from the stroke of the sword. You will be protected from the lash of the tongue, and need not fear when destruction comes. You will laugh at destruction and famine, and need not fear the wild animals. For you will have a covenant with the stones of the field, and the wild animals will be at peace with you. You will know that your tent is secure. You will take stock of your property and find nothing missing. You will know that your children will be many, and your descendants like the grass of the earth. You will come to the grave in full vigour, like sheaves gathered in season. We have examined this, and it is true. So hear it and apply it to yourself. Now I listen to that, and I think that there's a lot of truth in there. You could probably flip open the Psalms and see a lot of parallel passages which talk about God judging the wicked and God helping those who cry out to him. But, well, let's let Job answer it for himself before we dive in, shall we? Chapter 6. Then Job replied, "If only my anguish could be weighed, and all my misery be placed on the scales, it would surely outweigh the sand of the seas. No wonder my words have been impetuous. The arrows of the Almighty are in me. My spirit drinks in their poison. God's terrors are marshalled against me. Does a wild donkey bray when it has grass, or an ox bellow when it has fodder? Is tasteless food eaten without salt, or is there flavour in the sap of the mallow? I refuse to touch it. Such food makes me ill. Oh, that I might have my request, that God would grant what I hope for, that God would be willing to crush me, to let loose his hand and cut off my life. Then I would still have this consolation, my joy and unrelenting pain, that I had not denied the words of the Holy One. What strength do I have that I should still hope? What prospects that I should be patient? Do I have the strength of stone? Is my flesh bronze? Do I have any power to help myself now that success has been driven from me? Anyone who withholds kindness from a friend forsakes the fear of the Almighty. But my brothers are as undependable as intermittent streams, as the streams that overflow when darkened by thawing ice and swollen with melting snow, but that stop flowing in the dry season, and in the heat vanish from their channels. Caravans turn aside from their routes, they go off into the wasteland and perish. The caravans of Tema look for water, the travelling merchants of Sheba look in hope. They are distressed because they had been confident. They arrive there only to be disappointed. Now you too have proved to be of no help. You see something dreadful and are afraid. Have I ever said, "Give something on my behalf, pay a ransom for me from your wealth, deliver me from the hand of the enemy, rescue me from the clutches of the ruthless"? Teach me, and I'll be quiet. Show me where I have been wrong. How painful are honest words. But what do your arguments prove? Do you mean to correct what I say and treat my desperate words as wind? You would even cast lots for the fatherless and barter away your friend. But now be so kind as to look at me. Would I lie to your face? Relent, do not be unjust. Reconsider, for my integrity is at stake. Is there any wickedness on my lips? Can my mouth not discern malice? Do not mortals have hard service on earth? Are not their days like those of hired labourers? Like a slave longing for the evening shadows or a hired labourer waiting to be paid, so I have been allotted months of futility, and nights of misery have been assigned to me. When I lie down, I think, how long before I get up? The night drags on, and I toss and turn until dawn. My body is clothed with worms and scabs. My skin is broken and festering. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and they come to an end without hope. Remember, O God, that my life is but a breath. My eyes will never see happiness again. The eye that now sees me will see me no longer. You will look for me, but I will be no more. As a cloud vanishes and is gone, so one who goes down to the grave does not return. He will never come to his house again. His place will know him no more. Therefore I will not keep silent. I will speak out in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I the sea or the monster of the deep that you put me under guard? When I think my bed will comfort me and my couch will ease my complaint, even then you frighten me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that I prefer strangling and death rather than this body of mine. I despise my life. I would not live forever. Let me alone. My days have no meaning. What is mankind that you make so much of them? That you give them so much attention, that you examine them from every morning and test them every moment? Will you never look away from me or let me alone even for an instant? If I have sinned, what have I done to you? You who see everything we do. Why have you made me your target? Have I become a burden to you? Why do you not pardon my offences and forgive my sins? For I shall soon lie down in the dust. You will search for me, but I shall be no more. We're just going to keep on reading if that's okay. If I start commenting, I don't think I'm going to stop. Chapter 8. Then Bildad, the Shuhite, replied, "How long will you say such things? Your words are a blustering wind. Does God pervert justice? Does the Almighty pervert what is right? When your children sinned against him, he gave them over to the penalty of their sin." That's just brutal, isn't it? "But if you will seek God earnestly and plead with the Almighty, if you are pure and upright, even now he will rouse himself on your behalf and restore you to your prosperous state. Your beginnings will seem humble, so prosperous will your future be. Ask the former generations and find out what their ancestors learned. For we were born only yesterday and know nothing, and our days on earth are but a shadow." So Eliphaz, the first friend, he appealed to kind of philosophical logic and then this spiritual experience. And now Bildad, it's quite an opener really, saying his children deserve to die, and just piling on the condemnation basically, and then giving this kind of false promise of hope and prosperity. I can't help but read the prosperity gospel all the way through the vain comforters of Job, their theology. But yes, so we mentioned how Eliphaz's appeal to authority was to like philosophical logic, and then this spiritual experience. And now Bildad, he's appealing to the authority of the ancestors. So the ones who've come before. Verse 10, "Will they not instruct you and tell you? Will they not bring forth words from their understanding? Can papyrus grow tall where there is no marsh? Can reeds thrive without water? While still growing and uncut, they wither more quickly than grass. Such is the destiny of all who forget God. So perishes the hope of the godless. What they trust in is fragile. What they rely on is a spider's web. They lean on the web, but it gives way. They cling to it, but it does not hold. They are like a well-watered plant in the sunshine, spreading its shoots over the garden. It entwines its roots around a pile of rocks and looks for a place among the stones. But when it is torn from its spot, that place disowns it and says, I never saw you. Surely its life withers away, and from the soil other plants grow. Surely God does not reject one who is blameless, or strengthen the hands of evildoers. He will yet fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouts of joy. Your enemies will be clothed in shame, and the tents of the wicked will be no more. So he's like, come on, fess up, Job. And again, it's, karma, like law of attraction. Surely God does not reject one who is blameless, or strengthen the hands of evildoers. But that is not the experience in this world. Let's just let Job reply. Then Job replied, Indeed, I know that this is true. That's interesting, isn't it? He's been having a go at, and yet he is able, in his suffering, to still have the open-minded and humility to still recognize where there is truth, but he knows that it only goes so far. Anyway, I just think, that's an amazing thing for Job to say. Indeed, I know that this is true. It's easier for us just to say, no, yes, some things you might be saying are true, but look, you got the big picture completely wrong, coming at it the wrong way. But Job, I'm impressed. May I be more than impressed. May I be like him. Indeed, I know that this is true, but how can mere mortals prove their innocence before God? Though they wished to dispute with him, they could not answer him once in 1,000 times. His wisdom is profound, his power is vast. Who has resisted him and come out unscathed? He moves mountains without their knowing it, and overturns them in his anger. He shakes the earth from its place and makes pillars tremble. He speaks to the sun, and it does not shine. He seals off the light of the stars. He alone stretches out the heavens and treads on the waves of the sea. He is the maker of the Bear and Orion, the Pleiades and the constellations of the south. He performs wonders that cannot be fathomed, miracles that cannot be counted. When he passes me, I cannot see him. When he goes by, I cannot perceive him. If he snatches away, who can stop him? Who can say to him, what are you doing? God does not restrain his anger. Even the cohorts of Rahab cowered at his feet. How then can I dispute with him? How can I find words to argue with him? Though I were innocent, I could not answer him. I could only plead with my judge for mercy. Even if I summoned him and he responded, I do not believe he would give me a hearing. He would crush me with a storm and multiply my wounds for no reason. He would not let me catch my breath, but would overwhelm me with misery. If it is a matter of strength, he is mighty, and if it is a matter of justice, who can challenge him? Even if I were innocent, my mouth would condemn me. If I were blameless, it would pronounce me guilty. Although I am blameless, I have no concern for myself. I despise my own life. It is all the same. That is why I say, he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. When a scourge brings sudden death, he mocks the despair of the innocent. When a land falls into the hands of the wicked, he blindfolds its judges. If it is not he, then who is it? So a deep question, isn't it? We know more than Job. The reader knows more than Job, because we've read the first 2 chapters. He continues, "My days are swifter than a runner. They fly away without a glimpse of joy. They skim past like boats of papyrus, like eagles swooping down on their prey. If I say, I will forget my complaint, I will change my expression and smile. I still dread all my sufferings, for I know you will not hold me innocent. Since I am already found guilty, why should I struggle in vain? Even if I washed myself with soap and my hands with cleansing powder, you would plunge me into a slime pit, so that even my clothes would detest me. He is not a mere mortal like me, that I might answer him, that we might confront each other in court. If only there was someone to mediate between us, someone to bring us together, someone to remove God's rod from me, so that his terror would frighten me no more. Then I would speak up without fear of him. But as it now stands with me, I cannot. I loathe my very life. Therefore I will give free rein to my complaint and speak out in the bitterness of my soul. I say to God, do not declare me guilty, but tell me what charges you have against me. Does it please you to oppress me, to spurn the work of your hands, while you smile on the plans of the wicked? Do you have eyes of flesh? Do you see as a mortal sees? Are your days like those of a mortal, or your years like those of a strong man, that you must search out my faults and probe after my sin, though you know that I am not guilty, and that no one can rescue me from your hand? Your hands shaped me and made me. Will you now turn and destroy me? Remember that you moulded me like clay. Will you now turn me to dust again? Did you not pour me out like milk and curdle me like cheese, clothe me with skin and flesh and knit me together with bones and sinews? You gave me life and showed me kindness, and in your providence watched over my spirit. But this is what you concealed in your heart, and I know that this was in your mind. If I sinned, you would be watching me and would not let my offence go unpunished. If I am guilty, woe to me. Even if I am innocent, I cannot lift my head, for I am full of shame and drowned in my affliction. If I hold my head high, you stalk me like a lion, and again display your awesome power against me. You bring new witnesses against me and increase your anger towards me. Your forces come against me wave upon wave. Why then did you bring me out of the womb? I wish I had died before any eye saw me. If only I had never come into being, or had been carried straight from the womb to the grave. Are not my few days almost over? Turn away from me, so that I can have a moment's joy, before I go to the place of no return, to the land of gloom and utter darkness, to the land of deepest night and utter darkness and disorder, where even the light is like darkness. Right, we're going to keep on reading. I apologise for the sniffs again. Oh, these adverts. Okay, chapter 11 verse 1. Then Zophar the Naamathite replied, are all these words to go unanswered? Is this talker to be vindicated? You know when you watch a film and the way that it ends makes you want to re-watch the whole thing again? If you know how Job ends, that is quite a line, isn't it, from Zophar? Are all these words to go unanswered? Is this talker to be vindicated? There is something very poetic in many ways about that. Will your idle talk reduce others to silence? Will no one rebuke you when you mock? You say to God, my beliefs are flawless and I am pure in your sight. Oh, how I wish that God would speak, that he would open his lips against you and disclose to you the secrets of wisdom, for true wisdom has two sides. Know this, God has even forgotten some of your sin. Can you fathom the mysteries of God? Can you probe the limits of the Almighty? They are higher than the heavens above. What can you do? They are deeper than the depths below. What can you know? Their measure is longer than the earth and wider than the sea. If he comes along and confines you in prison and convenes a court, who can oppose him? Surely he recognizes deceivers, and when he sees evil, does he not take note? But the witless can no more become wise than a wild donkey's colt can be born human. Yet if you devote your heart to him and stretch out your hands to him, if you put away the sin that is in your hand and allow no evil to dwell in your tent, then, free of fault, you will lift up your face. You will stand firm and without fear. You will surely forget your trouble, recalling it only as waters gone by. Life will be brighter than noonday, and darkness will become like morning. You will be secure because there is hope. You will look about you and take your rest in safety. You will lie down with no one to make you afraid, and many will court your favour. But the eyes of the wicked will fail, and escape will elude them. Their hope will become a dying gasp. Something I've noticed about the Friends theology, which is mirrored in modern day prosperity gospel, is, now this is going to sound stupid, over-realized eschatology. I know, I'm sorry, I hate saying things like that, but over-realized eschatology. In essence, it's, what I'm trying to say is claiming now what is promised for us in the new creation. So name it and claim it now. It's an over-realized eschatology. It's what is eschatological for the end, but it is over-realized and it's claiming it for now. Jesus says that we should expect suffering in this life. It is cross and then resurrection glory. That is the pattern. But these friends have an over-realized eschatology. They're like, if you're righteous, or if you're suffering, you just have to repent enough, have enough faith, and then things will just be turned around and everything's going to be roses. The thing is, it's just not the way it works. Yes, God does hear prayer, and he does bring comfort and healing in this life, but they are little glimpses, and they are signs which are meant to point us towards the greater reality that is Christ. But our expectation ought to be that in this life we'll have all kinds of trials, tribulations, but we persevere knowing that Jesus has overcome the world. Right. Are you still with me? I'm going to try and get to the end of chapter 14. That's my goal. You can always pause it and come back to this video another time. Right now, I'm going to let Job reply to Zophar. Then Job replied. What was his authority? What authority did he appeal to? Seems to be a bit more kind of religious, doesn't it? He mentions God a lot more than the others. And the courts. It's like this legal, religious idea, isn't it? I'm sure commentaries would be able to put it in better terms than that, but that's what it seems to me. Chapter 12. Then Job replied, "Doubtless you are the only people who matter, and wisdom will die with you." Yeah, I just love Job so much. Yeah, fair play. He's got his wits about him, hasn't he? It's a cracking line. Doubtless you are the only people who matter, and wisdom will die with you. What have I... Sorry, but I have a mind as well as you. I am not inferior to you. Who does not know all these things? I have become a laughingstock to my friends. Though I called on God, and he answered, a mere laughingstock, though righteous and blameless. Those who are at ease have contempt for misfortune, as the fate of those whose feet are slipping. The tents of marauders are undisturbed, and those who provoke God are secure, those whom God has in his hand. So he's picking out some legitimate examples of apparent blessing on evil folk. Verse 7. But ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature, and the breath of all mankind. Does not the ear test words as the tongue tastes food? Is not wisdom found among the aged? Does not long life bring understanding? To God belong wisdom and power. Counsel and understanding are his. What he tears down cannot be rebuilt. Those he imprisons cannot be released. If he holds back the waters, there is drought. If he lets them loose, they devastate the land. To him belong strength and insight. Both deceived and deceiver are his. He leads rulers all away stripped, and makes fools of judges. He takes off the shackles put on by kings, and ties a loincloth round their waist. He leads priests away stripped, and overthrows officials long established. He silences the lips of trusted advisers, and takes away the discernment of elders. He pours contempt on nobles, and disarms the mighty. He reveals the deep things of darkness, and brings utter darkness into the light. He makes nations great, and destroys them. He enlarges nations and disperses them. He deprives the leaders of the earth of their reason. He makes them wander in a trackless waste. They grope in darkness with no light. He makes them stagger like drunkards. My eyes have seen all this. My ears have heard and understood it. What you know, I also know. I am not inferior to you. But I desire to speak to the Almighty, and to argue my case with God. You, however, smear me with lies. You are worthless physicians, all of you. If only you would be altogether silent. For you, that would be wisdom. Hear now my argument. Listen to the pleas of my lips. Will you speak wickedly on God's behalf? Will you speak deceitfully for him? Will you show him partiality? Will you argue the case for God? Would it turn out well if he examined you? Could you deceive him as you might deceive a mortal? He would surely call you to account if you secretly showed partiality. Would not his splendour terrify you? Would not the dread of him fall on you? Your maxims are proverbs of ashes. Your defences are defences of clay. That's another good summary of all that they're saying. Keep silent. Let me speak. Keep silent and let me speak. Then let come to me what may. Why do I put myself in jeopardy and take my life in my hands? Though he slay me, yet I will hope in him. I will surely defend my ways to his face. I need to click on that footnote, which says, or he will surely slay me. I have no hope, yet I will. Interesting. I will surely defend my ways to his face. Instead of asking where God is in the midst of your pain, the book of Job affirms God's control and asks, where are we in our pain? Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. Verse 16, indeed, this will turn out for my deliverance, for no godless person would dare come before him. Listen carefully to what I say. Let my words ring in your ears. Now that I have prepared my case, I know I will be vindicated. Can anyone bring charges against me? If so, I will be silent and die. Only grant me these two things, God, and then I will not hide from you. Withdraw your hand far from me and stop frightening me with your terrors. Then summon me and I will answer, or let me speak and you reply. How many wrongs and sins have I committed? Show me my offence and my sin. Why do you hide your face and consider me your enemy? Will you torment a wind-blown leaf? Will you chase after dried chaff? For you write down bitter things against me and make me reap the sins of my youth. You fasten my feet in shackles. You keep close watch on all my paths by putting marks on the soles of my feet. So man wastes away like something rotten, like a garment eaten by moths. Mortals born of women are of few days and full of trouble. They spring up like flowers and wither away. Like fleeting shadows, they do not endure. Do you fix your eye on them? Will you bring them before you for judgment? Who can bring what is pure from the impure? No one. A person's days are determined. You have decreed the number of his months and have set limits he cannot exceed. So look away from him and let him alone till he has put in his time like a hired labourer. At least there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail. Its roots may grow old in the ground and its stump die in the soil, yet at the scent of water it will bud and put forth shoots like a plant. But a man dies and is laid low. He breathes his last and is no more. As the water of a lake dries up, or a river bed becomes parched and dry, so he lies down and does not rise. Till the heavens are no more, people will not awake or be roused from their sleep. If only you would hide me in the grave and conceal me till your anger has passed. If only you would set me a time and then remember me. If someone dies, will they live again? All the days of my hard service, I will wait for my renewal to come, or release. Verse 15, you will call and I will answer. You will long for the creature your hands have made. Surely then you will count my steps, but not keep track of my sin. My offences will be sealed up in a bag. You will cover over my sin. But as a mountain erodes and crumbles, and as a rock is moved from its place, As water wears away stones and torrents wash away the soil, so you destroy a person's hope. You overpower them once for all, and they are gone. You change their countenance and send them away. If their children are honoured, they do not know it. If their children are brought low, they do not see it. They feel but the pain of their own bodies and mourn only for themselves. There we are, a righteous sufferer. Right, thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon. God bless.